This is Cas with Fextralife, and I'm here with Marko from RPG Division, and we're going to be talking about some upcoming things we're going to be working on, and just kind of, I don't know, talking back and forth about what we like about the things that we've been doing, specifically guides, pillars, Divinity, upcoming games, and whatnot. And, you know, as you saw on the video on his channel, he's going to be doing some work for us, and I thought it would be a great idea for you guys to just kind of see us together in action so you guys get an idea of what we're going to be working on.
Oh, you beautiful bastards, welcome to this special video collaboration of some sorts. Personally, I want to first thank Fextralife for including me in their business, because we have same goals in mind and we are doing the same content, and I think it's a great step for the future so that we don't, I don't know, kind of be rivals, although not technically rivals, but dividing content, dividing views and so on over two channels. So I think it's a great step for the future.
Absolutely. I don't think, though, that people would have a problem with us both making content. I think more content on the internet is probably better, but I think people will be happy with what they see. I think that we will actually perform, you know, hopefully if the things go according to plan, as much or more, you know, guides as we were producing separately. I think we'll produce, you know, at least as many or more together as what we were doing.
I have no doubt about that, since we are both working all the bloody time.
Yeah, we work our ass off for sure. I wanted to start out by asking you, you know, what got you into YouTube? Like, what's the thing that started why did you start making YouTube content?
So what got me into YouTube are MMOs, which I don't personally like anymore, but they did get me into YouTube thanks to my mate who was helping me. We were playing together in Lord of the Rings Online for 2 years, and then we switched to Star Wars The Old Republic. Then he had an idea. Why not start the YouTube channel? He always wanted to do that, but he had more trouble with English than I. So he naturally decided to offer me a position so that we start these things together, start doing guides, builds, and so on. We started the HD Play Gaming channel, and that's how we got into YouTube.
Okay. I gotta ask you a question, because I played the shit out of Lord of the Rings Online back in the day. What server were you on?
Oh, mate, I can't remember. We were European servers, that I do know. But yeah, we were really good at it. We had a great setup and a great friendship with all the people in the guild. You know, some guys from England came to here just to meet us in person, and so it was a beautiful time of my life when we had the time to play those things. But mostly it's because of the friendship and good group all together, guild, and so on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we had some amazing times in playing that game. I totally know what you mean, yeah.
Story behind RPG Division is kind of different, but before I tell that, I'm interested in what got you into doing YouTube.
Well, this is going to seem like really scripted considering your Lord of the Rings Online comment, but the person who founded Fextralife, her online username is Fexalia, and I actually met her playing Lord of the Rings Online. So
that is incredible.
Yeah, I don't know how this happened, but you know, she and I were playing on the same server, and we were in separate raid guilds. She led one raid guild, I led another, and you know, they invited me to play with them at one point, and I played with them, and they had such a great group, and so I started running with them like regularly, and eventually I ended up joining their raid guild, and she was running the raids, and I was kind of like her number two, and we ended up like clearing all the raids and getting server firsts and things like that. And we always joked about having the Cas and Fex show, you know what I mean? Because we just had so much fun. And finally one day, you know, we just kind of did it, except it was just under the name of Fextralife. It was just kind of our site that we put together with things that we liked. I mean, we have videos of Lord of the Rings Online raids and stuff, and guides on Lord of the Rings Online. That's kind of how we started. And then, you know, we moved on to other MMOs, and you know, she was a huge fan of Dark Souls, and you know, started one of the first Dark Souls wikis, and we just kind of built on Dark Souls with Dark Souls 2, and then kind of, you know, broadened out to other games like Elder Scrolls Online and Dragon Age Inquisition, and just other games that we just enjoyed playing.
Mm-hmm. So you basically started first with website and then added content on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, we had the website probably for, I want to say, a good year or two before we actually really started doing YouTube content like on a regular basis. So it's only been the last two or 3 years that we've really put in a lot of effort. Maybe just 2 years actually. So I feel like we're doing pretty good considering how late we are to the party, you know?
Definitely. What was your motivation for doing builds? What was the first game that you started doing builds for?
Wow, that's a good question. Probably the first game that I started doing builds for, like in a serious capacity, would be like Elder Scrolls Online, I want to say. They have a fascinating itemization system, and they have all these item sets that you can wear that give different bonuses for each piece of the set, and then usually the last bonus is very powerful. So when that game came out, I was just fascinated with the different combinations, because there was hundreds of them that you could potentially make that were powerful or overpowered. And I don't know, I think it just kind of started there. And I've always kind of been a bit of a min-maxer type of player. And I think it just kind of started with that game.
Nice. So Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah.
Dark Souls, did you do any builds for Dark Souls?
I never did builds for Dark Souls. I see it's very, very popular on the internet. It's something that I considered doing. But for me, I don't know. It just felt like, you know, wearing different equipment and, you know, this is before Dark Souls 3, like back when Dark Souls 2 was out or Dark Souls 1. Just using different equipment and maybe a couple different spells didn't really feel like a build to me. You know what I mean? I know it does for a lot of people, and that's great and that's cool to them, but it just didn't have the depth that I really wanted. You know, I kind of felt like people could figure it out for themselves fairly easily, whereas games like, you know, Elder Scrolls Online or Pillars or Divinity, people kind of need some help because there's more complication to it.
Sure, yeah, I can relate to that. So anyway, back to RPG Division.
Yeah.
What I wanted to tell you about is my personal motive why I started that channel. First, we lost HD Play Gaming channel due to being suspended for 6 months. There was this crazy thing going with one website that started flagging everyone's videos as soon as they have seen that someone put something in description or tags that shouldn't be there. Then they started flagging everything, and many channels got shut down due to that sucky website that played with basically people's lives just like that. And YouTube, being YouTube, they did not care. So we lost HD Play on 6 months. And in between, we lost obviously the income, everything. And that's when I started thinking, well, I need to change something. I need to do something else, or I'm gonna have to go find a normal job, and I really don't want to do that. And I was still in college at that time. So I decided to do specifically guides because I felt on the whole YouTube there was not a single channel that specifically told you in the video you should do this and you should do that. There were always videos on one topic, how you should do a thing, and it was such a long video, no one could be arsed watching it for just that one piece of information. So I decided to just do that. Small videos, that exact piece of information that you're looking for, and that's why it started doing good after a while. So anyway, that's the story behind RPG Division. That was my single motive, to fix that problem.
It's cool. I couldn't agree more. So what is it that you love about making guides so much?
Exactly that, because no one else seems to be doing it the right way. No one else seems to be, at that time at least, now it's different, but at that time no one was doing that thing, giving you that specific information where to find that item, where to do this, where to do that. Builds came in later, I don't even know when, but yeah, when I figured out that they are doing rather well on YouTube and on sites and so on. I think my first builds were with Nioh. That's when it all started. That's where I figured out, shit, I should probably get on that train and start doing some things like that. Paid off in the end.
Well, you know, Nioh 2 is coming, so more to do there.
Sure. I don't know if I'm too hyped for that game, to be honest. Because really? I don't know that we need Nioh 2. Nioh 1 is a complex game on its own.
That's true.
I don't really know what they can do differently, except maybe do a decent story this time, because I felt there was no story there, just snippets of a story. And the main character was there even a main character? That guy was a blank slate. Well, no characteristics whatsoever.
It's funny you mentioned that, because the story of, well, I won't call it the story, but the setting of the game to me is fascinating, because It takes place around one of the most famous battles in Japanese history, which is just an incredible time period in Japan. But it's not something a lot of people would know unless they know. You know what I mean? Like, nobody in the US or probably even Europe knows Japanese history, so it's kind of goes right over their head. You know what I mean?
Sure, I know about the feudal Japan, all the clans and all that. I'm aware of their history, not in depth, but I know the overall thing, what happened, and I love that setting the most out of any other setting in human history. So I love every game set in feudal Japan. That was not an issue that I had. I had an issue with the general story connected with that character. It felt there was nothing there. It felt like there was just, and why couldn't we create our own character then? Because that guy, who was he? No one. Realistically, some random pirate without any charisma, anything really going on for him.
That's true. I mean, I guess the character itself in the game is portrayed as not very personable. Kind of reminds me a bit of Warren from the Surge. You're just like, this is like a robot, not even really a character in that regard. So, what games are you looking forward to in the future then?
What games am I looking? The game that I like the most from what I've seen so far, but we've only seen a brief snippet of a gameplay, is Wasteland 3. That's the thing I can't wait for. And obviously, as everyone else, Cyberpunk, yeah, that sounds on paper awesome from what we've seen, which I definitely want you to give some comments because you've seen that in action. And other games, I don't know, Bard's Tale 4 might be a fantastic thing because I have real faith in that studio. I think it's In Exile, the same guys that did Wasteland 2, which I really liked a lot. I love, in general, that post-apocalyptic setting. So these would be the games that I look forward the most. You?
You know, I didn't play Wasteland 2. I really wanted to. I just never got around to it. It's ironic because Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 are probably some of my all-time favorite games. And, you know, Wasteland 2 is kind of pretty much every circumstance. They're the spiritual successor to those games because Fallout kind of went in a different direction. But I think the games I'm most looking forward to are probably Divinity on console because, to be honest, last time they did the Enhanced Edition, I just had a blast. Fex and I co-op the game, and I don't know, there's something really fun about playing that game with other players. I don't know why I don't do it on PC, but when you can sit on the couch with somebody and play through a game, it's rare. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And a game of that quality to be able to do it is even more exceedingly rare. You know, usually the couch co-op games are kind of like these 5 to 8 hour like shoot 'em up hack and slash games, which are fun, but you know, Divinity has real depth, and I think that's just something special. Other than that, Elder Scrolls 6, you know, they just teased the shit out of it at E3 and just got everyone like in a tizzy about it. You know, I'm a huge Elder Scrolls fan, so you know, I've been playing Elder Scrolls Online for years now, and big Skyrim fan, Oblivion fan, Morrowind fan. So I really look forward to that. And, you know, everyone's kind of on the fence about the new Fallout 76 game. I'm kind of digging the idea. It kind of reminds me of maybe like the Division a little bit. You know, you go in and you quest, and if you run into other players, you can attack them or not. And I don't know, we streamed a bit of Division back in the day, and the game didn't have a lot of longevity, but when we did play, it was amazing. You know, I mean, we would go in, nuke people, run for our lives, hole up in an alley, have a standoff for 30 minutes, and then rinse and repeat. You know, I mean, it was just amazing. So I think there could be something special to that game. I think Todd Howard, you know, he knows what he's doing, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one.
Mm-hmm. All right. Since you like Elder Scrolls so much, which one was your favorite?
Well, I think I'm a bit biased because Morrowind was my first Elder Scrolls game, so I think it's probably my favorite. I don't think it's objectively better than the other two games, but I think it just, I had the most fond memories. You know, when I first played that game, the very first thing I did was go into the first town, grab a bow, and go up to the top of the tower and just start sniping the entire village. I just went on a shooting spree, and I just remember thinking, how many games can you do this in? Like, none. You know what I mean? So I just kind of fell in love with it, like, right then and there, and I've just kind of been in love with the series ever since.
Same here. Morrowind, my favorite one, mainly because it had the deepest progression system of all the others. So I loved that. I loved the setting. I loved everything. And I truly think there's no such thing as objectivity. But if I'm trying to be as objective as I can, it's still to this day the best Elder Scrolls, in my opinion, at least.
It's pretty dang good, I'll give you that.
So tell me about Cyberpunk. What did you see?
Okay, so we got to watch about a 45-minute presentation. And the game's interesting. I mean, it isn't what I thought it was going to be. First of all, I think the most important thing that people learned was that it's first person, which nobody really knew that was going to be the case. I think after The Witcher, we all kind of assumed it would be a third person game. So the fact that it was first person was kind of like, holy shit, this is first person. Okay. So how are they going to do this then? And the gameplay itself reminds me a lot of Fallout, the newer Fallout games, wherein, you go around and you talk to people, they give you a quest, and you go here and you fight people. It doesn't have that wasteland setting, but the way that the general game mechanics work are very similar. You can go to shops and buy equipment and sell equipment, and there are other things, of course, that make Cyberpunk, but I think at the core of it, it plays much like maybe Fallout 4, you know what I mean? They just threw in some bells and whistles into the combat to make it more exciting than Fallout 4. Like the fact you can wall run, or you can shoot through walls with like X-ray vision, and some really cool shit that Fallout doesn't have. But underneath the bells and whistles, the gameplay plays a lot like Fallout 4, probably just with even better quality. And so I think people are really going to like that. The thing about it that's really shocking, or maybe not so shocking if you're a CD Projekt Red fan, is that the game is just every other word is a swear word, and there's just violence and nudity like at every turn.
I love it.
Yeah.
Anti-political correctness.
Yeah, they are on a mission with this game to just push the boundaries for what is acceptable in a game. And I think a lot of people are going to love it, and there's going to be a lot of people that are pissed off. I'll probably be in, neither of those groups. I don't particularly want my games to have that kind of thing, but I also don't not want them to have that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, I want it to have some of that. I don't know if it's too much for me, but I don't want it to have none of that either. You know what I mean? So, I don't want a kid's game. I want a game for an adult, So, we'll have to see. It was only a 45-minute demo, but from what I saw, it's very much for a mature audience. And, the thing about CD Projekt Red is I think they're going to be able to pull it off. You know what I mean? I think they're going to push that boundary, and they're going to be able to pull it off because of who they are, and people buying their product are knowing what they're getting ahead of time, and they're okay with it.
Exactly what I expect from them. I expect, as from Witcher 3, that we got some unique quest lines. Everything felt like it was handcrafted specifically. There was no generic quests. There was no generic things that you were doing. Everything was specific. Everything was unique. And that's what I liked a lot about Witcher 3, which people don't really give that game much credit for. But to write such a thing, where there's 300 hours of game time and everything is unique, that's something to behold, and that's what I expect them from Cyberpunk, especially when you consider in all the cyber details, all the things, how you can solve one thing, like from Deus Ex game, the new ones and the old ones.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, nothing. I mean, just the overall tone that what they do with their games is what I expect as well from Cyberpunk, since they are not being pushed. They don't have EA behind them, poking them with a stick. Yeah, you should push it out now. You should push it out now.
Yeah, no,
that
they don't
helps
have that.
A lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about them is that they can just do whatever the hell they want at this point. I mean, they have such a big brand and have had so much success with the Witcher series that they can make the game they want to make. You know what I mean? Which I think very few companies are in that position. Blizzard's probably the other one, and From Software is probably the other one. There's probably only a handful of them, if I'm totally honest.
True. Oh, now that you mentioned From Software, how worried are you that From Software's got Activision as their publisher for Shadows Die Twice?
I'm not worried one bit. I see a lot of people worried about loot boxes or microtransactions, and the only reason From Software took Activision for their publisher, in my opinion, is because, one, they never had a great relationship with Bandai Namco. From all my conversations with From Software and Bandai Namco, it was always a dicey relationship. And I think the reason that they decided to move away from Bandai Namco is partly because of that, and also partly because Activision is a bigger publisher in the US than Bandai Namco, and they are trying to bring their games more and more into the West. You know, I think From Software is a very smart company. I think they know that the biggest market in the world is in the US, and even though their games do very well in Japan, I think they're doing anything and everything they can to try and bring them more to the US, sell more in the US, and I think this is a move to do that.
Sounds reasonable. I'm just worried that they will want some money back from some dicey microtransactions and so on, which I think From Software will definitely object to, but will they be able to push them completely out of the development and monetization? We'll see. That's what worries me.
Well, you know, it could happen. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm just saying I'm not worried about it happening. I mean, it is true that publishers have some weight over the developer in terms of those sort of decisions, but I don't think From Software is a company that can be pushed around very easily. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, they could just say, fuck off Activision, we'll get somebody else, and they'd have 10 people in line waiting.
I like the way you think. I hope they have the balls to do so if they see that these guys are trying to meddle in their greedy little fingers.
Could be, I don't know.
So tell me, now that you've said that Fallout 1 and 2 are one of your favorite RPGs, tell me which would be your, I don't know, top 3, top 5 RPGs of all time. Or it doesn't have to be 3 or 5, just name some of them that you liked the most and why.
I actually wrote an article a long time ago about my top 5 RPGs and published it on the site. But this was like 4 years ago, I want to say. But off the top of my head, my number 1 game is probably, and it's tough to pick because there's a lot of great games out there, but probably Knights of the Old Republic is probably my number 1. It's probably, again, objectively, if there is such a thing, probably not the best game on my list, but I don't know, the period of my life that I played it, the experience, the timing was amazing, and the game itself is amazing. So it just, I don't know, it just has a special place for me. And then Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 are both probably on that list. Final Fantasy 1 is on that list. That's how old I am.
Final Fantasy 1.
The first one. Yeah, I actually had the Nintendo Power for Final Fantasy 1. I had the very first edition of Nintendo Power. I had subscription for like the first 150 copies, so that's how old I am. But yeah, I mean, that game was the first role-playing game I ever played, you know, that and Dragon Warrior. So, and I, you know, when they revamped it with Super Nintendo graphics, I got it on PSP and then Vita, and now I have it on my cell phone and play it from time to time, and I still play it to this day every so often. I don't know what number 5 would be, but that's, you know, those are probably my top 4. What about you? What are your top 5?
Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah.
People usually like the most Final Fantasy 6, right? Or 9. These would be the favorite ones, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, probably 7 and 9 are probably the 2 most popular. I mean, with people our age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Final Fantasy 7 is one of my favorites, definitely. I loved that thing. I love Sephiroth, and I love the whole vibe around that guy as a villain. One second he's all, you know, all commandy-like. Another second he goes psycho, kills everything. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. But my favorite all-time game is definitely, game in general, is Fallout 2. That thing is ridiculous to me. The whole post-apocalyptic setting, the freedom, what you can do. I mean, shoot everyone, go wherever you want. It's brutal as hell, which I love about games. Since I'm not going around chopping people's heads off in real life, then I like to do that in games. So that's what really kept me going. I still remember the first demo that I played for Fallout 1. I couldn't even buy the game back in the day. In Croatia, no one could buy games. We all bought games from guys that were from those few people that had internet connection, and they were pirating it and burning it on CDs. That's the only way how we could get to games. So anyway, I got Fallout 2, but before that I played Fallout 1 demo, and that was that section with a couple of gangs, and you had a minigun in your inventory. And when you went into that courtyard and slayed everyone with minigun, I mean, that was a time when I knew I have to buy this. I don't care. I have to play this. I don't know English. I don't know anything, but I'm going to play the living shit out of it. And so I did. And I learned English through it a lot.
Nice. Always a
swear
bonus.
words as well.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. And besides that, really Fallout 1 also. And what else? Yeah, I loved Baldur's Gate. That was really a fantastic game, though it was too complex for me at the time when I tried to play it. So I could not appreciate the whole game on its own. And what else? There were a couple of great ones on PlayStation 1. Someone reminded me of Legend of Dragoon. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah.
It was not really popular as Final Fantasy, but it was a fantastic game. But that's about it really from RPGs. And yeah, I need to include Pillars of Eternity 2 and Divinity Original Sin 2.
Yeah.
They are simply too good to not be included into this list.
They would definitely be in my top 10 for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, these would be the best ones. And Morrowind, you can add Morrowind to that.
Yeah. Well, at least until Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, and then hopefully it bumps it out.
I seriously doubt that.
That's probably true, but you never know.
I don't know, mate. That's another topic that I wanted to ask you personally, because you are so familiar with Elder Scrolls much more than I am, and you also played probably every Fallout game. So the direction where they are taking Fallout and the Elder Scrolls, what do you think about it? The streamlined progression system, the worlds are still fantastic, no one really is bitching about that, but the whole system seems like it's being dumped down to hell, and I don't personally like it. What do you think?
Well, this is a really tough question. It's a really tough question for a couple of reasons. One, I'm probably not in the majority with my opinion, so I'm probably going to get shit all over for what I think about it. But secondly, I have relationships with Bethesda pretty tight, so I'm not sure what I want to say here. But I will say this. Fallout 1, Fallout 2 were some of my all-time favorite games, as I mentioned, and I was really disappointed when they went first person with Fallout 3. I mean, really disappointed. I actually bought the game and then returned it because I hated it so much. That is not a popular opinion. Most people think Fallout 3 is the best Fallout of the series, I think. I didn't.
New Vegas would be, I think, the popular opinion. But please continue.
I think New Vegas is the minority, and I actually like New Vegas much, much more than Fallout 3.
Me too.
It reminded me of Fallout more than Fallout 3 did.
Exactly. What everyone says. It had that Fallout vibe to it, atmosphere, everything was right.
Yeah. So I actually returned Fallout 3, and then a year later when it had its Game of the Year edition, I bought it, and I just told myself, it's not a Fallout game, it's just a game. Just play it as if it wasn't Fallout. And then I really liked it. But when I considered it Fallout, I just couldn't get into it. To this day, it's not a Fallout game to me.
I feel like Fallout 3 is a great game, but as you say, I feel like Fallout brand has been slapped over it. And just, they slapped Fallout in the name of the game, and you're now playing Fallout. Yeah, there was the setting, there were the creatures like Deathclaws and everything else, Brotherhood of Steel, Faction, and everything that is familiar to Fallout. But yeah, I can definitely agree with you on that. It lacked that proper Fallout feeling when you were playing the game, which New Vegas nailed completely.
Yeah, no, New Vegas felt like if they took Fallout 2 and put it into a first-person shooter is kind of what it felt like to me.
Yep. Yeah, though I could never really think of Fallout, although they are different games, Fallout 3 or Fallout New Vegas or Fallout 4, better than Fallout 1 and 2. I just cannot.
Yeah, no, they're not. They just aren't. I mean, they might be to some people, and anyone who probably likes them, is probably younger and never played Fallout 1 and 2 back when it was new, because now the graphics are so dated, it's hard to appreciate it for what it was. But I keep hoping against hope, one day they'll remaster it or remake it, or make a new Fallout game with the same, have Obsidian pick it up and make a, game like Pillars, but, Fallout. It'd be fucking awesome.
Telling me, I'm probably same like you and many other fans. I'm hoping for that ever since Brotherhood of Steel Tactics game, which was alright, but not spectacular in any way.
It was okay. I mean, I've purchased every Fallout game ever made, and it was, I don't know, I think the Brotherhood of Steel game that came out on Xbox might have been the only other game that was worse, but it was pretty, it just wasn't the same. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, it wasn't. I was not impressed with the game overall.
Yeah.
But it had Riddick in it. As soon as I've seen that it's got Riddick in it, I went crazy. I have to play this. So Fallout fans, both of us. Now you've mentioned Fallout 76.
Yeah.
I honestly think about that. Can I even say that, considering that you have a relationship with Bethesda?
Oh, just say whatever you want.
Okay. I honestly think that's an easy cash grab for them. That they just went and used the brand, used the popularity of the brand, and went with the lowest common denominator and lowest possible imagination and development, and just put it out there and let people do their own thing. I mean, that's my opinion on it.
Well, it's definitely a possibility. I won't say that. That seems to be the type of game everyone is playing these days. That large arena survival game is what's blowing up. I mean, Fortnite is just a larger version of that, and PUBG and all that are all games that have a similar type of mechanic. Like they drop you into a world, and you gear up and you shoot each other. So it's very possible that they did that. The fact that it's Fallout is a little bit more appealing to me because I'm not a Fortnite player or a PUBG player. So I think, the fact that it does have the Fallout brand attached to it may make me pick it up. I obviously want to see more about it. I mean, I have questions. We're going to be at Gamescom, so hopefully I'll get some more of those questions answered. Maybe they'll have a playable demo, or maybe we'll get to see some new footage, and maybe I'll have a better idea. But I trust them enough to give them the benefit of the doubt for the moment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's Fallout 4 just online, nothing more, nothing less.
And it could be. I don't know.
It's same like GTA 5 did. They first did a single player game, then they just added the online component. I haven't played online, so I don't know how good it is. But the same thing as Metal Gear Survive is. It's just a simple way of trying to get the cash in their hands of a fantastic series, which is one of my favorite ones. I love Metal Gear. I absolutely love that bloody thing. It's so ridiculous. It's so good. It's amazing in every possible way. And when they did that Survive, I mean, it was. I mean, I could expect that since Hideo Kojima is not with them anymore. I just hope that you're right, that they don't go the easiest route with Fallout 76, and that they truly add some unique things to it. But we'll see.
Well, this leads me to an interesting question, one that I wanted to ask you, which is basically, a lot of people are saying that single-player games are kind of going by the wayside in favor of multiplayer games. You're sort of seeing this trend with like what you're talking about with Fallout 76. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think we're going to see an end of single-player games here in the next decade, or do you think there will always be, at least some single-player games by some of these larger brand companies?
I believe that single-player games will always be represented, be it in near future or far future, simply because single-player games are what started this whole gaming process, and it will be what will end this whole gaming process if it ends eventually. Single-player games are a must because not everyone's got online connectivity. For example, where I live, I have horrible online connectivity, and it definitely keeps me away from some online games. But another component that I personally don't like in modern gaming is the esports component. I think when esports came into play, everything became so much more toxic. I was playing Dota 2 a lot, and I could not play the game anymore without muting the whole chat and muting everyone's voice, and then that's the only way I could enjoy the game. Before esports, when we were playing Lord of the Rings Online, Star Wars, but the Old Republic, it was milder than today. Definitely milder. Today, I've seen this toxic behavior online that is unrivaled by anything I've seen before. So that's my worry, and that's why I feel that people will turn back to single-player games, especially when you see these single-player games that are specifically crafted, like Witcher 3, Divinity Original Sin 2, Pillars of Eternity 2, then some indie games like Binding of Isaac, and so on. So many fantastic projects. Then this new one, Hellblades, Senua's Sacrifice, whatever the name is. An amazing game. These things will always be here because they require, I don't know how to say this, but you see work put into them. My thoughts on multiplayer games overall, be it MMOs, be it Battle Royale, be it this, be it that, is that multiplayer games are the games that are the easiest to make, and that they don't require any real imagination except a bit when creating characters in MMOs and so on. But they are the easiest way to create a video game where you would just focus on the social factor, where people would get together, because frankly, whenever you play a game with someone, with a friend, it's better. I remember me playing Army of Two game, which is as mediocre as it can be when playing single player game, but when I played it with a mate, we had a blast. We could get over all the bad things about the game, but we just enjoyed it because we were friends. We tend to laugh, we tend to do this, we tend to do that. We just enjoyed the bloody thing. Same with MMOs. You're gonna get with a group of people, get through the dungeon. But I don't feel like any real, I like the proper word, any real uniqueness to them. They're so bland when you strip them down to components, when you compare them to single player RPGs in general. It's just my way of thinking about MMOs and online games in general, and that's why I don't play them anymore. I stopped playing them a long time ago.
Well, that's a pretty honest answer.
Yeah. What do you think about it?
Well, it's like you said. I mean, the thing that I really appreciate about multiplayer games is sharing the experience with someone. I think always makes it better. It doesn't even have to be, like you said, it doesn't even have to be a good game, and it's more entertaining. But the thing that I find about getting older, being an, I don't know if you can even call it a first generation gamer or whatever it is, somebody who grew up on like Atari, is, the older I get, the less excited I get about multiplayer games. When I was 16, I was playing Halo, Halo 2, Halo 3, talking shit to people, teabagging them, running them over. And I loved it. I mean, I could play it all day, every day. I mean, Call of Duty, whatever, give it to me. But now that I'm, in my 30s, it's like, I just want to play something that's interesting, that makes me think, that challenges my intellect. And, I can kind of go at my own pace, that's a little more relaxed. You know what I mean? Like, I can put my controller down, go grab another beer, come back, check the news, maybe make a phone call, and then go back to playing instead of, just go, because somebody's waiting on you or whatever. But I think to me, there will always be an element of playing multiplayer that I will always appreciate in games. And I think I like it most the way they do in games like Divinity Original Sin 2 or Salt and Sanctuary, where it's just like 2 to 4 people and you're having fun with friends.
That I can definitely agree with. I actually did a couple of streams for Divinity Original Sin 2 where I tried to connect people so we played together a bit in a 4-man team. So everyone controlled one character. It was a blast. We had so much fun. That's where a true multiplayer component comes into play, when it's well thought out, when it's not just generic thing that you have everywhere else. That's when we can appreciate these things. But you're completely right. Pacing as you get older gets slower.
Yeah.
So we don't want hectic things.
I find myself doing more and more mobile gaming. You know what I mean? Like, I can't say it out loud to anyone. I probably shouldn't say it here, but I do. I find myself, I got 10 minutes here or 20 minutes there. I don't have the time to game that I used to. And so it's just convenient, like, I still love gaming and I just get in when I can, Yeah, that's perfectly reasonable. But when there's also a competitive part of you when you're younger, that's a bigger part of you when playing games. When you're older, you don't care if you're gonna get a score 1 kill, 10 deaths, or if you're gonna get 10 kills, 1 death. It doesn't matter to me at all anymore. But when I was younger, sure, I wanted to be the best at Taken 3. I wanted to be the best at whatever the hell I played at that time. Oh, see, it's different for me. I'm still super fucking aggressive and super competitive when I play. I just don't play because I don't like getting that way. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I know what's going to happen if I pick up this controller and jump into this game and it goes badly. I am not going to be in a good mood. So I just, I'm kind of, there's no reason for me to really get into that much. I mean, if somebody was like, hey, let's play, I'd be like, okay. But, I don't really hang out with people that play those sorts of games anymore. Not because I don't like them or whatever, just kind of because, we've all kind of grown up and have too much shit going on in our lives. And we want to play something more relaxing that's not going to get us all jacked up.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. Like, for example, Human Fall Flat. Did you play that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you should try that. And definitely with a mate. That game is unbelievably fun to play. But you'll see for yourself when you start playing that with anyone. It's ridiculously good. Even for streaming, for everything. It's great.
Well, I'll have to check it out.
So I wanted to ask you one tough question.
Okay.
Put you on the spotlight a bit.
Okay.
Would you be okay if for the first month you gave me 100,000? No, that's not the question. Sorry. Pillars of Eternity 2 versus Divinity Original Sin 2.
Oh, shit. That is a tough question. So what's the question exactly? Let me clarify.
Which one do you like more and why? And which one, if you try to be as objective as you can, would you say is a better game?
Oh, that is a tough question. Well, it's not exactly a black and white answer. I mean, there are things I like about Pillars that are better than I like about Divinity, but then Divinity has things I like about it that Pillars doesn't have. I think overall, I would give it to Divinity maybe by a hair. I think that they probably created a game that will appeal to more of a wider audience of people by a bit than Pillars. And I just generally like the combat more in Divinity, and Divinity 1 as well, not just Divinity 2. But I like that style of combat. It reminds me of the old Fallout games, big shocker, where you sort of planned what you were going to do, you know, and the fact that you can do it multiplayer now is just frankly fucking awesome. I mean, if I could go back and play like Fallout 1 or Fallout 2 and have my friends like, you know, take control of different characters and we just have like this massive bloodbath on the screen, would be amazing.
Yes.
But I think that Pillars 2 has some really amazing mechanics. The character building in the game is the best I've probably ever seen in any game ever, if I'm being objective. I mean, the fact that you can play just about any way you want to play in that game is phenomenal. You know, Divinity doesn't quite have the broad spectrum of builds that Pillars does. I mean, you could sit there and do builds for it all day, every day, and probably never run out. I mean, you could literally do them for years and you wouldn't run out. So I really like that aspect of Pillars, but I think overall I would probably give it to Divinity just by a hair. What about you?
I like your answer. I really like your answer. I think you pretty much nailed it with everything, but simply the building aspect of Pillars of Eternity 2. And I like writing more in Pillars of Eternity 2. The thing that I can appreciate the most about Divinity is the fact that they added something completely new, those surface elements, and combining different elements into one new surface and all that. That's just crazy good and fun to play with. And the one thing that you said is that Divinity Original Sin 2 is for wider audience, but they stayed with that complexity so that you could also have fun, so that also hardcore players can have fun with different types of builds and so on. So I feel like they've nailed that balance fantastically. While Pillars of Eternity 2, I would say it's more technical. It requires you to know stuff, a lot of stuff about playing the game, especially on hard difficulties. God damn it, it is. I'm still on the fence. I might even give it slightly to Pillars of Eternity 2. Also only by a hair, because of one thing. I don't like what they did in Divinity Original Sin 2 with new surface elements. Those cursed, blessed surfaces. I think it went too far and beyond anyone's control during the fight. It just, everything felt like it could go on fire any given second, and then it would be necrofire, then you would cast bless, and the next turn that bless that you just used was useless since they cast something else on that same fire, and just everything was, I don't know, the whole screen was always in elements, and I felt like it was a step back, in my opinion. I felt like the perfect game the first game nailed it completely as it should be. Perfectly, those types of elements that can be combined and used to your advantage or to your disadvantage if opponents know what to do. But right now, I don't feel you can control it. I just don't.
Well, it's a fair answer. I mean, there is a certain amount of annoyance to the cursed surfaces and the fact that, you know, you just keep having to, you know, control the surfaces, and it's almost futile, particularly in some of the later battles.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember that game on the old, that battle on the old platform where everything was on fire?
Yeah, that was nuts. That was a nuts battle.
But so yeah, you would give it slightly to Divinity. I would give it slightly to Pillars. I liked the most about Pillars of Eternity too how they updated the graphics. I felt like in even new classical RPG games, it was always something of a downside. They could never nail the graphics. Even though it was an isometric view and you don't require so many resources to create something decent, but I feel like Pillars of Eternity 2 really did a great job here. It all looks really, really good, especially effects and everything else.
Yeah, it does look very nice. I'll give them that. In case anyone is wondering, which they're probably not, I don't know why I phrased it that way, but we're actually going to be doing a console stream for Divinity when it comes out in the end of August. And I believe Marko will be on that stream with us playing one of the characters. So
sure.
We should have a 4-person party. So if you guys want to see us together in action, look for us at the end of August.
We will definitely put some notifications on the channels. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think that'll be really fun, actually. I think a lot of people will really enjoy that.
Oh, yes. The most. I mean, it's so much fun playing that game in co-op.
Oh
That's the thing. That's the aspect of that game that why I would give in some cases when you count in the multiplayer system of Divinity Original Sin 2, then I would say it's a better game than Pillars. But if I disregard multiplayer component of Divinity Original Sin 2, then I would say Pillars.
Yeah, no, I get it. So I have a really serious question for you, dead serious.
Okay.
Which is, how often do people confuse you with being Russian?
All the time. No one ever thought that I would. Actually, maybe 1% of people told me that I must be from Balkan area, which they are correct. So I'm from Croatia, but yeah, Russian, or they usually tell me that I'm Gru from Despicable Me cartoon. That's the often one. So yeah, but it's fun. People like it. I don't mind. I really don't mind.
So here's a real question. How many of those people who then find out you're from Croatia have to go Google where Croatia is on the map?
I don't know. You have to ask them. But yeah, Croatia is not a very popular country. But I believe people know about it. Mostly through sports. We are really good at sports, even being a small country and so on.
You guys are still in the World Cup, right?
Yep. We are going to play Russia, as it turns out.
Wow, see, everyone's going to think we scripted this, and it is not scripted at all.
Exactly, yeah. It kind of feels unreal.
Yeah, a little bit.
So yeah, that's the thing. I don't mind. Some people were saying that, they can't stand the accent, but most of the people said that they really like it because it's something different. Usually everyone's got an American accent or a British accent when they are talking English, which is as it should be. So when they hear something completely different, they kind of liked it. I don't know, in general. We'll see what future brings.
Yeah, no doubt. So, do you have any more questions for me on this episode or no?
Sure. I have a couple more. One thing that I'm interested, since both of us are huge fans of Fallout, is what do you think about Fallout 4?
I liked it better than Fallout 3. I'll say that. I think generally I liked it. Oh, this is tough. Compared to New Vegas, I think some things about it were better and some things were. I think the story and the Fallout universe setting were worse in Fallout 4 than they were in New Vegas. But the gameplay I felt like was better. Like I think they said they brought in like Destiny's, combat mechanics developer. Yeah. And I really liked how smooth the combat was. It felt more like a shooter. And that was probably the biggest upside of the game to me, was like the combat felt really good. And I'm generally a person who is more about gameplay mechanics first than everything else second. Like if the game is fun, it doesn't really matter what your objective is, to me. Except for the fact that it's a Fallout game, which means a little more to me than if it was just called some random game. You know what I mean? Which is why I don't think the story and setting were as good as New Vegas. I think that overall it was better than Fallout 3, except maybe the endings were kind of shit. But otherwise, I think it was a step in the right direction. I'll be curious to see what they do in the next game. I mean, I think they're moving closer and closer to doing Fallout Online at this point. I mean, they have pseudo Fallout Online coming with Fallout 76. I mean, really, the next thing is just a full-blown MMO, right? I mean...
True, but I don't see that working. I simply, as I don't see Elder Scrolls Online working, simply they lose that freedom that you get by playing the game as a single player experience. You simply cannot do stuff anymore. You're restricted. Nothing is dynamic. Everything is static. So you can't really affect the world in any way. So I don't know. That's why I feel like those games should not be online. And personally, Fallout 4 was the only game that I could not finish from the Fallout series. I just couldn't force myself. I felt like almost every RPG element was stripped down completely. The new system was horrible with only perks and what else. I felt they completely botched the RPG element of the game, but I would definitely agree with you that the shooter mechanics were far better than before. And the combat in general felt better, which pisses me even more, because if they did RPG element properly combined with that new gameplay style, I mean, it would be fantastic. It would just be fantastic, and I feel like they really missed the opportunity here.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean, totally.
In general, Western or Eastern RPGs?
I'm definitely a Western RPG person. I mean, I grew up playing JRPGs because, frankly, that's all there was when I was growing up. That's all anybody had. But as I've gotten older, I think Western RPGs have really drawn me in with Fallout. And like The Witcher, for example, I remember playing the first game on PC, and it's the first role-playing game that I ever played that made me pick up a book and read it. You know, I mean, it was...
Nice.
I actually grabbed The Witcher and read it, and ooh, let me tell you, there's some Polish words in there that you have to... They have a whole site dedicated to words in The Witcher that you don't understand. It was literally, I'm no joke, go look it up. And I just kept it open while I read the book, and it was amazing. It was fantastic. And I think I just prefer the like, kind of like what you said, the more freedom. Generally, Western RPGs have more freedom, and Eastern RPGs are more scripted. You know what I mean? They're more story-driven,
Yep.
character-driven, and battle-driven. Whereas
They don't have quests in general.
They just have a certain style that's just not really... It's not that it's not fun, because I grew up playing it and I had a blast. It's just that I feel like Western RPGs are even more fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I believe that JRPGs have been declining for a long time now. While we were younger, when we had Final Fantasies from 6 to 9, which were a blast, every single one of them. Then you had Breath of Fire, what was the name?
Yeah, Breath of Fire.
Then you had Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross. I mean, these are all top-notch bloody things to play. Suikoden and so on. Those were amazing goddamn titles. I mean, the best of the best. And now when you look it up, what do you have from JRPGs? You have Dragon Quest. You have Final Fantasy, that's still here but completely changed for better or worse. Then you have... I don't know what you have anymore besides those two. The ones that you have are the others that you have, like for example that Hyper Dimension Neptunia. I tried playing that once. Oh boy, I managed to get 2 hours in and botched it completely after that. So, no fucking way. This is a JRPG. What the hell is this? And most of them seem like that. There are some specific ones out there, like that only battle aspect of the game is the one that you control, where you have lots of characters in. There's five installments in that series. Can't remember the goddamn name.
Persona?
Yeah. No, not Persona. Persona
Oh.
is also amazing. Persona is amazing. I don't know. I forgot the name. Anyway, you had lots of characters. I mean, 100 characters or so on that you had on your roster, and you were changing them in the battle and so on. So that was a good one, because there was a lot of depth to that game, to the whole installment. But usually there are no more great JRPGs when I think about it. And I feel like it's been declining a long time now, while Western RPGs also in decline for some time, but now they're picking up all the things that they can, and now we have these new classics like Pillars of Eternity, Divinity Original Sin. So I think that eventually, if something doesn't change, I don't know what's going to happen to JRPGs. I'm not optimistic about them.
I think they're always going to be around because they translate extremely well to mobile gaming. And Japan, China, Asia in general is huge into mobile gaming because they all train everywhere. So they have a lot of time to play while they're on the train, and JRPGs work extremely well on mobile because they're turn-based.
Interesting. I never thought about that.
Yeah. So I think they're probably just transitioning into more of a mobile type gameplay. Because, I mean, you see Final Fantasy has become an action RPG, and many other JRPG franchises like Ys, for example, has become full-blown action. And, you know, it's interesting because, you know, kind of just to touch on this a little bit, you see big publishers and developers like BioWare, you know, it's like their studio got big making role-playing games and now they're moving to multiplayer, and Bethesda got big making role-playing games and now they're moving to multiplayer, and CD Projekt Red's got big making multiplayer games. It makes you wonder after Cyberpunk if we won't see a multiplayer game come from them. You know, I mean, I guess they did Gwent, but it's not really the same, I guess.
Well, that's why if you notice that everyone is talking about live services lately, it's an easier way to get money. That's my opinion on it, because we get back to online games versus single player games argument. It's simply easier. You just gotta have servers constantly working on and some updates, fixes, hot fixes and all of that. Yeah, that's the downside, that they constantly have what's the word? Constantly spending money on them to maintain the servers. Expenses. They constantly have expenses to make it all work. But in general, content-wise, it's really easy to make those kinds of games compared to Cyberpunk or Witcher 3 or something like that. So I think that's why they tend to go down that route, especially since gaming is so popular these days. Before it was not the mainstream thing. Now it is a mainstream thing, and a lot of people are playing it, and especially young people, and they like competitiveness, like you've said. And I think it's the easiest way how to get money out of people at the moment.
Could be.
I just hope that we don't see the end of top-notch AAA RPGs like CD Projekt Reds. But I'm not worried for big publishers like Ubisoft, EA, Activision, and so on. I don't think they can produce anything anymore relevant. Everything will be irrelevant. It's just gonna be a short lifespan of that game, and they're just gonna pop year after year that same franchise. So
yeah, probably. I mean, that's most likely, obviously.
They know how to make money off of people. They know that marketing is important, and why would they force themselves to work on a project like CD Projekt Red for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years when they don't need to? They can just copy paste everything. Look at FIFA, for example. I don't know if you ever played FIFA games.
Yeah, but it's been a long time ago.
I mean, I can't tell you how bad this game is, but people don't say that. I don't know why people aren't commenting on that. I've played FIFA from 98, almost every FIFA game, and it was fantastic at 2014. And then it started declining because the whole focus was on Ultimate Team and features were being taken away instead of added. It's just horrible. Game was more broken every year. And unfortunately, that's how they milk the money. And it's good for them. Look, if I was a developer, a publisher, if I could get on a project that would only take me 1 year to complete, and it would be way more profitable than something that I would be doing for 5, 6 years, I would take it. So I can't really blame them too much. I think the public also needs to be more aware.
Well, I think the other thing is, and you see this in Hollywood too at the moment, is just that people don't want to take any more risk than they have to. I mean, if you have a successful franchise,
exactly,
why make a new franchise if the one you have is still making you more and more money every year? It's like, that's why you're seeing like Call of Duty 8 and why you're seeing sequels to every fucking movie and that you would never see sequels to, like Ted 2. I mean, who the fuck makes a sequel to the Ted movie? You know what I mean? Because
didn't even watch the first one.
Yeah, I don't know, but there's less risk for them, so they just take the less risk option. And where you see the best games is from people like Warhorse or people like Larian, where they have to take a risk to make it, or even CD Projekt Red with The Witcher when they first started. If they don't take that risk, then they're never going to make, you know.
Yeah.
And even these companies like BioWare and whatnot, they all did at one point. You know, they just don't have to anymore.
Oh, BioWare. Painful word for every older RPG player.
Yeah.
What happened to them, I can't. I mean, Yeah, most of the team left. That's what happened. Not a big mystery, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, one more thing. What is the best MMO that you ever played? What would you say?
That's easily kind of circling back where we started with Lord of the Rings Online. Absolutely.
Yeah, mine is Guild Wars 2.
Guild Wars 2. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you played it, but that game is amazing. Really different than everything else I've played online.
I played the shit out of Guild Wars 1, but I played Guild Wars 2 maybe a little bit.
Didn't like it?
It wasn't that I didn't like it. It was just that I didn't have as much time to invest in it as I did Guild Wars 1 and Lord of the Rings Online. So when it came out, I was kind of half in, half out of it all the time, so I never really got pulled into it. I generally love the Guild Wars franchises, so I have nothing against them. It's just I didn't really get into it and get sucked in.
I like how dynamic they were compared to other generic MMOs, you know. Well, generic. We can say World of Warcraft is generic, but it's the best MMO ever, right? Same as Lord of the Rings. Copy-paste of World of Warcraft set in Lord of the Rings setting, which I prefer. But anyway.
Yep.
I want to see something different from MMOs in future. I really do want to see something more dynamic, more in terms of combining single-player experience with the multiplayer one, so that there's some kind of a balance that can strike.
Well,
so
I mean, Guild Wars has the closest thing to that right now, if I'm not mistaken, right? So,
yep.
But anyway, so I have one last question for you before we end this podcast. So for you, what is the biggest upside of working with Fextralife? Like, what do you get out of it?
What do you get out of it? Well, a lot of things, to be honest. There are a lot of aspects of why I decided to join. Obviously, we don't need to say financially. It's much more safe to work with you guys now, especially since YouTube is going up and down all the time. But the biggest thing is that you guys, especially you, because you are the one doing guides and builds, we have the same mentality. We know how things work. We know what needs to be done. And there's simply no point having the same content on two channels, constantly, trying to battle for the views and so on. There's no point in doing that. It's much better if everything is on one side, and that way people can enjoy without being bothered. They'll go there to check him out, go there to check her out, go this, do that, and so on. But the biggest thing is that you guys have already a fantastic setup with website, with people working for you, with people specifically for editing stuff, for software stuff, for this. So you have a great business altogether and a successful one. And it would have been a foolish idea to turn down such an offer, because I'm going to be doing the same thing. It's going to get more traffic. I'm going to get better money from it. I'm going to work with fantastic people that are nice, that have the same background. I mean, there's simply no downside to it.
Well, yeah, I mean, my grandparents are Russian, so... No, I'm just kidding. All right.
So, yeah, that would be it, really.
Okay, cool. All right. So, we're going to call it there for the day. I just wanted to chat with you and have everyone kind of get an idea of what sort of relationship we had, what they could expect from us, kind of see us in action, kind of off the professional grid for a minute, and get an idea of how things are going to work.
Yeah, I feel like it's also needed for them to see that we are actually communicating rather good, that we have the same focus and motivation to do these things, and that we are in general have a good connection.
Absolutely. So I guess we'll call it there, and if you guys want to see more content from Marko here on the channel, feel free to leave that in the comments. We obviously plan to get him making guides, and as much as he can make, as much as he wants to do, that would be great. And obviously the plan is to have him do some audio on some of the guides. I don't know exactly how much or which ones yet. We haven't gotten into all the details because this is all kind of brand new. But if you guys, you want to see that, leave your support in the comments. That will definitely influence that decision.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, you guys, take it easy. We will try and do this again if you guys enjoy this sort of thing. I have no idea what we'll talk about. Obviously, you can see we don't really have a problem talking. This thing's gone on for like a good length of time now, so that's not going to be an issue. We just got to come up with something to talk about. So if you guys want us, want our opinion on anything in specific, not that we think you do, because neither one of us is a very, braggadocious sort of person and doesn't really go to our head. But if for some reason you want, feel free to leave that in the comments as well. And, we'll do our best to try and get that out there for you guys. So take it easy. Stay tuned for more. I'm Cas.
I'm Marko, and see you all soon.
All right. Take care, guys.